30th, 2023. I think, gents, this is episode 5 of the Lumber Word.
Word.
Greg Riley, Sitka USA, Matt Beamer, Hampton Lumber Sales, live from Portland, Oregon. You can see in the background, Matt was saying they just got a little rain. The flag's not moving at all behind you, Matt, so it must be pretty still out there.
Good golfing weather.
We had Matt Lehman on last week. Matt, we missed you. Glad you're back. Thanks, Matt Lehman, for being on. So if I go over what happened since the last time we talked, business still remains really good, especially on truckload from what I can tell. And my feeling is that a lot of people out there are looking for reasons with rates and so forth of why the market should actually be getting weaker. But damn, fellas, I mean, I'm noticing that it's actually still staying pretty good outtake, especially if you're a distributor. I mean, orders have been really good. Truckloads, you're getting paid for having truckloads, especially highly mixed trucks that you can ship pretty quick. I was going to bring one item up too that I'm hearing from a lot of buyers, but Greg told me if I do bring it up, he's going to, let's just do it for fun. So Greg, I keep hearing from a bunch of buyers that I'm not buying if the trucks aren't on the ground.
Yeah, Ash, I think what they're saying is I'm not buying from you because everyone else is buying lumber.
That could totally be it. That could totally be it. But Matt,
there's big love, baby, right? I mean, you just got work to do with that guy. You'll get there. I know.
No doubt. But that's so. But the outtake is remaining good. I'm seeing a lot of RFQs coming across from all the big buyers. A lot of heavily mixed stuff. Items still seem to be moving quite a bit. Heck, even a couple of weeks ago, I was looking for a reason why the market may be getting weaker. But stay the course, I guess, and maybe some items are. But let's go around. Matt, Greg, what do you guys see since last week?
I'm slower, but part of that is I don't have what people want to buy, which is 2x4/16s, any grade, any species, and I'm out. I've got cars on order, but they're not going to be in town for 3 weeks, and so that's kind of slowing that part of my business down. But everything else is okay. My car business is average. My truck business is average. It's just a week. There's nothing. I can tell there's a holiday coming, right? Some people are already kind of buttoning up and heading to the cabin type stuff. But and I'm not alone. It's the room. There's the energy at the sales office here is pretty moderate. There's people talking about going to the beach and going to the mountains and blah blah blah. So I don't know. It's what I expected for this week, and we'll see what happens next week. But I was just joking about the weather change here in Oregon, switching from fire season to hurricane season. That's not completely a joke, right? I mean, it is at this point. I look at the market as what's going to cause the next rally. Is it going to be a production interruption, or is it going to be an increase in demand? And it's a flip a coin situation. I don't really know. What's this hurricane going to do to production in the central and the east regions for yellow pine? I have no idea. We'll find out, I suppose.
Greg, thoughts from last week to this week?
Well, I mean, we continue to be very, very active. But I think to Matt's point, part of that is we have a lot of inventory. We can ship highly mixed loads to a lot of places. And we also have some of the more popular items and, are easily selling, well before that gets, to Matt's point. I mean, we have a vessel coming to Houston next week. We've already sold out all the 2x4/16s on it, at like $100 above where the market was 3 weeks ago. So one of the things I've been thinking about, Ash, is, and we've had some conversations with different people, and it's always, I always have a gut check when I'm really busy, but I hear about people not being busy, and I'm trying to understand, what that whole dynamic is. The other thing that I realize is the business, and Matt and I've talked about this before. The business is back to the way that it was pre-pandemic. You know, it's the business is hard. It's not easy, and I think that there's a lot of people out there that, you know, there's some people. Let's not say a lot. There's people that over the pandemic may have gotten a little complacent and lazy with how this business is, and they're having to make an adjustment to that.
So what do you mean by
Matt?
that? What do you mean by that, Greg? They're making an adjustment to that. They just, as far as on both sides of the fence, buyers
You know, it's a lot harder. I mean, you have to work a lot harder and make less money than you did during the pandemic.
Yeah. No, there's no
Right.
easy money. I mean, this is just lumber for 90% of our career. Got to be nimble, got to be intelligent, got to make calculated risks, and sometimes those don't pay off. But you know, if you're smart and pay attention, they usually do. So, you know, it's I'm not. I think this has been a good year for everybody. You know, I mean, like I said, when I came back from the inland, I told you guys about how everybody was happy. Well, I mean, think about it. The market has had like 2 or 3 runs, big ones, $100, $150. That's the most we can get out of this market, right? Okay, well, what if you were short and had to wear a $100 loss? Well, that's nothing compared to the $800 loss you might have lost last year or the year before. I mean, when you had the kind of volatility we just came through in the pandemic, to go back to your maximum loss is 100, that's fine. I can live with that kind of risk. I mean, if you can't, you shouldn't be in this business, honestly. And then on top of that, you've actually been, if you're a distributor or wholesaler, guy that does truck business, you've been paid for carrying the wood, right? I mean, there's been a margin in it. And then for most of the first half of the year, there was a really nice basis trades available to people to speculate on. And so if I look at the market as this year has been good for the retailers, they're making money. Good for the wholesalers, they're making money. Good for the distributors, they're making money. And good for the mills, they're making money too. They're not making as much money, but they're still making a little bit of money. And so, you know, to go from massive amounts of volatility to more kind of a stable, predictable market, that's fine. I'm happy with this year. I'm more concerned about next year at this point.
I guess, you know, man, I guess the only thing I challenge that is I'm not sure mills are making money. I mean, if I look at earnings reports for last quarter, Canadian mills lost money. I mean, we know that we're at, or you know, like we know that we're at low levels for European mills. I mean, I guess yes, Southern mills had been making money, but if I look at the current prices of Southern pine, I'm not sure that those are completely profitable numbers right now.
No, but if you take their holdings as a whole, so if you look at Canfor, Fraser, and look at what they lost in Canada versus what they're making in the U.S., I think they're still marginally profitable. And you look at a company like Hampton, we're not making any money in Canada either. Nobody's making money in Canada, but we're making money in the U.S. barely.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say, you know, the mills are making some money. They're not cash negative right now. So.
Well,
You know, when you get into real problems is when mills start having to sell off assets to raise cash, like we saw in 2011 when Sierra Pacific was ordered by the banks to sell off some of their property because they had no cash and they had a lot of land. So that type of stuff isn't happening at all. In fact, mills are still buying land. You know, they have money to spend. They still have retained earnings from the last 2 years.
Right. I mean, the mills built up big war chests of money over the last couple of years.
Then there's another.
You look at cash
$8 billion that's sitting in an account in Canada that might come out at some point. Have you noticed the Canadians have started chirping about how unfair the tariffs are? You know, again.
So I heard
that money will get dispersed. You watch.
I heard that come up, and if you remember, Matt, Greg, we mentioned this 3 months ago. We're like, when did we say? We said something. If people were watching this show, I think Greg, you made the point. You said something like that's like third or fourth quarter. This would start coming up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, the jockeying has begun, and you know when that settles out, we'll see. I do want to talk a little bit about Chase Schiller Home Index came out yesterday, and it showed that prices are unchanged from a year ago. I guess the most amazing thing, here again, to be expected, higher interest rates. The housing prices have come back and have been basically flat, depending on the market you're in. I guess the most interesting thing, Ash, the only market, there was a couple markets that were up. The market that was up the most,
Illinois?
Chicago.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
So we're almost.
I don't know. I don't see that, but
Yeah, it's interesting. So look, I listen to a lot. I watch and follow a lot of economists on Twitter and everything, and the same ones that were saying 6 months ago or 8 months ago how rates couldn't go above 5% are now asking questions of, hey, we're at 7%, could we go higher? And there's this underlying thing out there that everybody, if you get into homes, just be assured that you'll be able to refinance in the next 2 or 3 years at a lower rate. And I get scared when I hear everybody saying that. And maybe everybody can be right for all the wrong reasons. But so what I'm seeing is rates keep rising. Homes are shrinking, like we talked about, entry-level homes. They're making incentives, whether that's buy downs or discounts. The home builders, which are still doing great, are doing whatever they can to keep moving their inventory. So with that Case-Shiller and all that kind of stuff, Greg and Matt, what do you feel like here on August 30th with housing going forward? I mean, it still looks good to me, but my God, the shrinkage on the houses is interesting, right?
I mean, I saw a thing on Twitter, I think, of Zillow came out and predicted that housing prices would go up 6.5% next year. I don't know. I just feel like whether it's housing or cattle futures, soybeans, heavy equipment, you name it, I just feel like with what's going on in Europe and China and in the United States economically, that these are much bigger headwinds than we want to talk about in just our little fiefdom here, the lumber business.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we're going to have some headwinds economically in 2024 that we have no control over. And so, I remain relatively bullish on the new homes in terms of like the large builders. I think that they can power through the smaller home with, more incentives on the buy side. That there's still a lot of demand for housing in this country. And, as long as we keep bringing more people in and having more kids and, there's young people. I got kids that are, now 21 that can buy their own alcohol. Pretty soon they'll be looking to buy a house. And so, I think that there's going to be demand for new homes. I'm a little bit concerned about multifamily because of the banking problems that I think the banks are going to really tighten up if they haven't already. Their lending patterns, and also just the cost of money, right? And then I'm pretty negative on existing homes, just because of a couple of realities. One, people like me that have a 3% mortgage, I have no reason to sell. And then two, a lot of the homes that are for sale are just old inventory that aren't a very good value. And so that opens the door for the new home builder, but that doesn't really, that's not going to open up the market for existing homes unless we see what Greg says somewhere down the road. How many homes are for sale? All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Which
Everyone
I don't
is
see
for
that.
sale at a price.
It hasn't happened in Portland yet or in Oregon, but I just think that there's going to be some slowdown here in housing in general.
You know what, Matt? I think that that's part of like why we're where we are. Is everybody for a year has been hearing there's a recession coming, and I mean I think the surprise in the first half of the year was how much stronger housing was than everyone expected it to be. To your point, I mean I had concern about multifamily, and because of the banking, but once the Fed gave people collateral at maturity value, that completely fixed all of that really fixed all the regional banks, any balance sheet issues they had. And I mean, interesting enough, I see multifamily inquiry has accelerated in the last few weeks for, you know, October, November. I've got a lot of October, November start stuff that is in the pipeline, and have quoted a lot of stuff for, you know, Q1 of next Q1 of next year. So I'm you know, I'm kind of like flipping the switch on multifamily. I think the wild card is what happens with interest rates. To Ashley's point, if you see mortgage rates go to 8%, then you're going to have a market slowdown. You're going to take another level down in sales pace, both of existing homes and new. If on
This
the
is the
other
current
hand,
30-year right now.
7.3. If on the other hand, there's a group of people out there that are of the opinion that the Fed probably is done. They're going to hold. They're going to hold the short-term rates where they are for an extended period of time here, until they're quote unquote confident that, you know, inflation is vanquished and on their way back. I think, but over that time, I think you could see mortgage rates ease back down. And I mean, honestly, I mean, you know, a 6 or a 6.5% 30-year fixed mortgage isn't an impediment for a really decent sales pace when you put on when you contract, you know, when you think back historically, and when you add in the fact that, you know, home prices have been, you know, adjusting lower, that helps the affordability.
So what rate would it take? I guess if we over a 6-month period went to 5% rates again, is that good or bad? Because at 5%, does that open up a whole bunch of existing homes for the market again? Does the market get flooded with homes at 5%? Where's the point of inflection on rates right now? Back to where?
No, and I don't think it can go to 5% in 6 months. I mean,
I don't either.
I think the bigger issue is the price of the home. So, and I'll use this as my example. When you're paying $3 for gas and you can go buy groceries at the store for 2 weeks for $150 for your family, you can afford to go to Disneyland and you can $150,000 home. When you're going to the store and you're buying $150 worth of groceries and it lasts you for 3 days, and your gas now costs $5 a gallon, you can't afford to go to Disneyland. You can't afford $650,000 homes at 8% interest rates. So inflation and interest rates obviously are intertwined here, but consumer spending is something that I pay attention to, and I'm seeing it drop, right? People are starting to save more. They're being given an incentive to save more by higher interest rates, right? If you got money laying around, Ash, and the bank says, hey, we'll pay you 5%. Well, when's the last time the bank paid you 5% for anything?
2007.
It's been a while, right? So
2007.
You know, I just feel like people are crimped on their spending, and I think that the homes that are selling in the 650 and higher range are going to be harder to sell at these rates. And I think that the demand for housing between 250 and 550 is going to be exceptional, right? I mean, no matter what the rate is, that's what people can afford. So that's why you're seeing lower, smaller homes with less doodads in it.
Let's just real quick go around the different species and talk about maybe what the traders out there are seeing and what they're doing with it. So I won't go in any particular order. Euro. I think there's boats on the water that are going to start landing in the next week or two. I think there's less wood coming over than there was last year at this time. As Matt said, 2x4 16s went yeehaw on everybody. I mean, they had a low trade price in the 420s 2 months ago, and there's a lot of people are asking 600 now, right, on 2x4 16s, and people are calling, looking for them. 2x6s is still a little bit tough to move. There are some studs coming over. We were able to sell some of those that we had. What's the lay of the land on the euro looking like, Greg, getting dropped along the ports, and what you see happening over the next 2 to 3 months in that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, shipments are down 50 to 60% from what the run rate was in the first quarter and the third and fourth quarter of last year. And I think that's probably going to be consistent as we go forward. For the most, all of that excess inventory that had been built up has been cleaned up. So we're kind of right sizing. We're right sizing the prices with the volume. I mean, obviously the wild card is going to be at $600. Do a bunch of guys go, hey, well, maybe we should send an extra, 1,000 trucks of 2x4 16s and drive the price back down, sub 500 in November, December. I mean, that
doesn't happen, does it?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, they're out in the woods right now saying,
I think the over under on that happening, I mean, it's it's better than 50-50 that it's going to happen. So there's just always a question of timing. And the flip flop on it is 2x6s, I think, are going to do nothing but go up because at sub $500 prices, there's going to be less of them. End of story.
Yeah.
So I think that for the most part, lower volumes of Euro are what you're going to see, and we'll have to watch and see if some of these prices move up, whether supply crushes demand.
Are the Europeans making money here?
I think that some make some money. Yeah.
So that I'll get as a comment.
Some make some money some of the time.
So there's a big difference in cost between Central Europe and Sweden and all the different areas. So some people are making money, but I hear prices of what the cost of production is in Europe. That's such a wide band. I don't know what exactly it is. I don't think it's $850 a thousand, but I probably don't think it's 450 either or 500, right, on a port unloaded basis. All right, so let's go into U.S. species, Matt. What you see that all the time? What's your feeling there?
It's sneaky good. It's like kind of what you guys talked about earlier in the market, and I tend to agree. It's like we're not setting any sales records, and the energy level's gone down a little bit here, but we still have a good order file, and we're still getting more orders at these prices, and there's still a lot of wood that needs to be bought. That's being shopped around that, they're having trouble buying. So those are good signs for moving forward. You also coming into a time of year where a little bit more work's going to get done when things start to cool down, literally temperature wise. I guarantee if you're a framer in the Portland metro area right now, you're thrilled with the weather this week, and these guys in Phoenix and Houston and places where it's really hot most of the time, they're going to start seeing some cooling down, and that'll help, with production. So I think we're pretty happy with the way things are going here on the U.S. species. The one, I guess, sore spot that we're seeing is green Doug fir dimensions just slowed down, and it's the slowest of the dry Doug fir actually hanging in there pretty good. We've had a good week selling dry Doug fir all over the West, and dry hem fir. I just sold a bunch of that here in the Midwest this morning. It's been trading. It's studs have been pretty active. We're not as busy as we were on studs 2 weeks ago, but we're still selling multiple cars of studs every day and getting good numbers for it. So the green Doug fir is a bit of that's a sinker, but everything else is just fine. Sneaky good is what I would call it.
What Matt, if I could ask, is so Western Canadian market, like something I try to pay attention to, but I just don't get good information on anymore. What's going on in the Western can market right now?
Not a lot of wood being offered in 2x4 and 2x6 number 2 or premium. It's what you are being offered is usually tally limited, and it kind of a ho-hum price. There's nothing great or bad about it. It's just not exciting. And the one thing that everybody still wants is heavy 16s 2x4, and that's just something you're not going to have much luck finding, unless you want to overpay for it and wait a month, to ship it. Low grade 2x4 number 3 still relatively hard to buy and easy to sell and expensive. 2x6 number 3 on the other hand is tanking, and I've seen it both from the east and from the west. And so I guess that's just the China factor right there.
Matt, it could be
They
too.
can't get rid of it.
How 2x6 number 3 traded at such a big discount in Southern Pine over the last month. That's probably taking its toll on, or tied in, right? It could be tied.
All I know is it's just gotten ugly here. It's down $80 in the last month, and it seems to be available. I can buy it from anyone, and it's
what's the mill price now on that, Matt?
Starts with a 2, low 2, maybe even a high 1.
Yeah, well, so when you get sub $200, then you're really at an investment level, aren't you?
I would think so, but how much 2x6 number 3 is consumed domestically, right? I mean, it's never been a big deal. It's back during the heyday of China buying everything that came out of North America in the 08 through 2015 timeframe. There was a real cottage industry on exporting 2x6 number 3 to Asia, and that's gone. And there's just not a big enough domestic usage for 2x6 number 3. I mean, some smart guy will figure it out. But
I think you guys don't you guys own the company that are the smart guys?
Yeah,
that
one
know
of
what
them,
to do
yeah.
with 2x6 number 3.
I'm sure they've got it all figured out. But I mean, me and my little distribution model, I don't have enough horsepower to change the needle on that one.
Let's jump over to Eastern Can real quick, Matt. You're talking about that, Greg. What are you seeing in Eastern Canada? Everybody's back from summer shutdowns and at full production, from what I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the Eastern market's been similar to the Western market at the mill level. As it's been a slower week. Mills that have something that they want to be a bit more aggressive on and make sure that they sell it are going to trade that at a discount. I mean, there's some things that are still tight. MSR is still tight in the East. I think 2x4 16s, obviously, given the Euro effect, are been the stellar standout.
So let's follow up. I was going to have one on Southern Yellow Pine. All I can tell you is I looked at the numbers. Looks like 4-inch got a little bitty uptick, and Southern Yellow Pine in general still looks like some of the items, especially the low grade, are investment levels. Don't really have a comment on the rest of it, but let's jump over.
I think the wild card is going to be, Ash, is just seeing what ultimately ends up happening with this hurricane, depending on how it goes. I mean, its path runs through a bunch of producers in Northwest Florida and in Georgia. So, it could have a more of an effect on production in the short term. So we'll see. That's a
good point. And actually, on rural radio on Sirius the other day, I was listening to them talking about the fires in Louisiana in some of the timberland.
I got to take this. I'll be right back. You can talk amongst yourselves.
So let's jump over to our segment of Marry, Date, and Breakup that we love.
God.
We love to talk about. Everybody likes it. So what we do every week for everybody listening here is we pick one or two items that we would like to marry and invest in for a long period of time. And this is no indication of any of our relationships at all. We are strictly talking about lumber. Then, the items that we just want to, we have the items.
Yeah, I'm not throwing 29 years away over some lumber, buddy.
No, then we have items that we just want to date. And then we have items that we want to break up with. They've keyed our cars and we want to just get them off of our distribution thing. So Greg,
what did I miss?
I was just explaining to people how we're going to play Marry, Date, and Break Up, and how that in no way reflects any type of our personal relationships. It's strictly with lumber items.
Okay, so how are we going to play?
So let's
go first, Ashley.
Let's talk about it first. And I'm having a really hard time between marrying and dating this one. I think I talked about it last week. So Matt, I like and I've changed my mind as we just went to a different place here. I like the low grade in a lot of items, but I like 2x6 number 3 in pine still and in spruce.
Right.
But I think I would just date that at first just to see how it is. Maybe put it on the ground, sell some futures against it, in an area where there's a lot of industrial users. As far as Mary goes, I think I would like to marry 2x4 Southern Yellow Pine. And Greg right now is thinking you haven't even dated it before, so why would you marry it? Right? This is a problem I might
very
have.
much.
Okay, that's what he's thinking.
I was just going, wow. You know what? Talk about going like, talking about moving fast.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to talk about that a little bit there. And the breakup segment, we're still talking and texting a lot, but 2x4 and 2x6 10-footers. I don't know. I don't have enough confidence in them for a long-term relationship. So those are the ones I'm looking at. So go ahead, Greg. Why don't you pick yours
Matt,
here?
you go.
Well, marrying. I still like 2x6 16s, 2 and better, and number 3. I do like 2x6 number 3 also in 14s and 12s, but like whenever I can buy 2x4 or 2x6 16s at a discount, whatever the grade is, I pay attention. To me, that's a no-brainer type thing. So I guess I'd probably marry that, and then I want to date 2x4 16s because they're so good, but at the same time, I don't like the value of them long term. So, in the short term, I like dating them. In the long term, nah. We're just dating. And then the what was the last one? Kick out of the car.
Break up. What are you gonna do?
with.
Yeah, break up with. Get out. Geez, I don't know. I'll have to come back to that one. I haven't thought about it. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, so I've been thinking about this a little bit, and there's been some really great basis trading opportunities in the first half of this year, and I'm kind of going through the screens trying to find out. We've been about 3 or 4 weeks now, where probably 2 or 3 weeks anyhow, where futures has been pretty much on par with the cash market, and there's no premium as we go out, which is disappointing as a basis trader and doesn't really leave much opportunity for forward selling either. But I'm starting to look at a few things that are like showing up on the radar for basis traders, and those are things that I am going to marry. I will not be sharing those today, but I'm going to marry those things, and I'll tell you after I've married them for tag along trading. Okay.
And that's a very complex relationship when you're attaching futures to it.
Yeah. Well, you don't. Yeah.
There's a term for
it's
that.
multi-level. Yeah. You gotta
multi-level
you
marketing.
need to be committed for that relationship when you're going to basis trade. That's enough for another whole segment.
So are those is that some of the items that we were talking about today that you really wanted to put the buy hat on and do?
No, not necessarily. I've got a few things. I'm in that stage where I'm looking to tie the knot with these, but I haven't yet. So dating, I am still dating MSR Spruce. We are in the fun zone. It's great. I mean, we've got it. It's fluid. We're like, we're partying, and it's really fun. And I think, seasonality, we've got another, 6, we can probably get another 6 weeks that we can like date. And then that may ultimately move over to, I may end up marrying it for Q1 next year, but we're still in the fun zone there. I am continuing to be hating 2x6, 9s, and 10s. And it's hard being a mill that has 2x6 10s for sale to say that I hate them, but I hate them. So that's an opportunity for buyers out there, because I hate them so they can love them. Does that make sense?
What's the investment price to a buyer
It's the
in the southern
investment price
United
is sub
States for
500
2x6
probably.
9s or 10s? Yeah.
It's probably sub 500.
We're
With
getting
that,
close to that, aren't we?
You're put it this way, you're in that range where you're, I mean, you know, on probably 10s, you're in the mid high 5s, and in 9s, you're probably still low 6 to high 5s. So, I mean, they're getting there, but they're not
We got
there
a ways
yet.
to go. Yeah, they still
They're
got to
not there yet.
got to walk home. For sure, they
Yeah,
gotta
so I
walk
had
home.
one more thing before we unless you had something that you need me to.
no, go for it.
You know, just in our in our political segment, I just wanted to have a comment out there, Matt. You know, I see that 77% of Americans do not want either of the leading presidential candidates to run. So I'm saying that for the good of the country, these people should step aside for a new generation of leaders. And that's just me. I did have one thing. Really, I was very disappointed this week. Eminem said that he didn't want Vivek to be rapping his music anymore. And I just want to say, where is the real Slim Shady? Would you please stand up?
All right, guys. Well, that was a perfect segue to end the show. Matt, if anybody wants to get a hold of Matt, you can contact Matt at Hampton Lumber Sales, Greg Riley, and Ashley. I put my Sitka email down below. We'll be doing this again. Greg Kuda and I are going to try to fire up the future segment show tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Central. So hopefully we get that one launched and we can talk a little bit about CME and futures and basis and so forth on that show.
That'd be awesome. Hey, Matt, great. I love having you back, man.
Yeah,
Miss
thanks,
you.
Matt.
All right.
It was more fun this week than last week.
All right.
Cheers,